Thank you so much for staying tuned to this channel. Welcome to another edition of International Forum. I am Wilson Marshall. Today is all about the dominance of China in the South China Sea. All other coastal countries in that region, Philippines, Malaysia, Taiwan, Burma, you just name it, they are all complaining. Even as far as some coastal areas in Japan, they're saying what China is doing is not fair. And right now, according to report, it's like China never shipped, opened fire, a warning shot rather, towards a U.S. vessel, telling them to leave a particular area in the South China Sea. The name South China Sea depicts Chinese owning that particular portion of the sea. But how come other countries along that coastal region, why are they complaining? In the first instance, why was it even called the South China Sea? Anyway, that just by the way. My analyst will be the one to throw more light on that. With me here in the studio, he is a lecturer from UNIBEN, a political analyst, public affairs commentator. Join me to welcome Neville Obahedo. Welcome to International Forum. I appreciate your coming.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon, viewers and listeners at home.
All right. This other man I want to introduce is a writer, a journalist, public affairs commentator, political analyst. Join me to welcome Nowinta Ibotaka. Welcome to International Forum.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. This other man I really want to introduce. He is a vibrant legal practitioner, a human rights activist, political analyst. They are all grounded, yet both local and international politics. Join me to welcome Barrister Emmanuel Obakpolo. Welcome to International Forum.
Good afternoon, Nigerians, and good afternoon, Wilson.
All right. So, it's no longer news about what is going on in the South China Sea. And according to reports, Chinese want to dominate that region. They gave reasons, but other countries are not seeing the way the Chinese are seeing it. What is so special? Why is Chinese China so interested in dominating that region? I want to start off with you, Barrister Emmanuel Obakpolo. What do you feel about this imbroglio?
Looking at it critically and also looking at the present situation, economic and political situation of the countries, the coastal countries around the Mediterranean Sea, which China has politically named part of it to be the South China Sea. Some of the countries are Malaysia, Vietnam, Nepal, Philippines, Bangladesh, and others. And if you look at these countries economically and politically, they cannot be compared with China. Particularly Malaysia. China gave some amount of loan, about $4.6 billion US to Malaysia. And that amount of money given to, that loan rather, given to Malaysia is a kind of shutting up their mouth and also to make China a supreme power when it comes to the politics of that area. And if you look at it also critically, you discover that China, as it stands just now, is the world's highest trader and manufacturer, including investments. Anywhere China goes to, what they quickly do, they invest, and not just to invest, there is a kind of tie to bring the people under their whims and caprices. And sometime in 2016, the tribunal gave a verdict telling China that no, you cannot claim hold to the South China Sea. It is part of the Mediterranean Sea. So every other country like Vietnam, Nepal, Bangladesh, and others were also given legal rights. The tribunal was specific, legal rights to the usage of that part of the sea. But China being who she is today, and she is now seeing herself as a sub-world power
Superpower
to the United States of America. So she is also doing all she thinks she deems fit to do to protect her investments And so because of that, she is claiming hold to that place. But legally, that is not the position.
Legally, that is not the position. You heard the legal practitioner. Well, let me come to the journalist. You heard his opening remark about the South China Sea, and of course, other countries in that region. Malaysia, according to him, indebted to China. They were forced to shut up because of the loan. What do you feel about this?
Well, going forward, before we look at this perspective he has just, told us, China, we have to look at the character of China as a country. Where is China coming from? The character of its leaders. Who are they? Who were some of them? Prior to 1947, you have what we have, Republic of China. It was the Republic of China that was more or less weak, dominated by Japan and other world powers. China suffered. China went through trauma, political, economic, name them, trauma. It was traumatic for the Republic of China. Where people like Sun Yat-sen, the people, people that, that ensured that republic. After 1947, the Chinese Revolution came in. People like Mao Zedong, who said never again will China go down or be subservient to any country. So look at that China, look at that Xi Jinping, the present president, who is dreaming to be a dictator for life. What do we expect from China? China wants to control everywhere. China is already in Africa. China, you know what I mean? They don't have the election in Hong Kong, like some few parliamentary elections. Look at what China did. It was what we call in local parlance in Nigeria an RNG election. All the people, all the activists, all the main people that are supposed to have been voted for.
The Electoral Congress are all for Chinese.
It was manipulated from Beijing, and the right people were not allowed to contest the elections. It was state managed. Is it Taiwan? Jinping, China is trying to squeeze Taiwan, believing, knowing that we are an independent country. But we must quickly look at something. Before 1912, pre-1912 and all that, that landmass, they have the same historical affiliations. But when people decide, say, I want freedom, you should let them go. That what happened to Vietnam, Philippines, Cambodia, all these countries.
Yeah.
But just as I said, that if you look at what is happening in China, look at the character. The character of the dictator in Beijing. The man want to be a Mao Zedong, one of the greatest revolutionary leaders that has happened to China. He wanted to be a Deng Xiaoping, one of the greatest reformers that came after Mao Zedong. He's dreaming to be the third most important character historically in China. So this man will not rest. If you are talking of China, you're talking of Xi Jinping.
All right.
You're talking of leaders. Just like I know I'm talking to enlightenment.
Yeah.
We are talking about economy. You are talking about the characters of the leaders. The supreme leader. Xi Jinping is absolutely an imperialist. He wants to dominate. He wants to be like the United States. He doesn't want anybody to, whether there's a treaty or no treaty, he's not interested. The economic interest, the political interest of China must be supreme. That is it.
All right, all right. I'll come back to you, Nowincha. I'll come back to you. Well, Neville Obakedo, I believe you've been monitoring this. You've been, taking note even before you got the message. I believe that might have gotten a whiff of what is happening in that particular region. After it's called the South China Sea. Yeah. Don't they have a right to it?
Well, when we talk about China as a country, as my brother Comrade Butako wanted to do just now, to situate China in historical perspective.
Yeah.
because it is that understanding of the historical trajectory of China that you can now understand and situate the very subject matter of the South China Sea. Without wasting time, I want to say, as we speak in this world right now, we have two republics of China. We have what we call the People's Republic of China, which is mainland China that is headed by Xi Jinping. Then we have an island China, which is Federal Republic of China. Then that is what we refer to as Taiwan. Now, historically, around that region, the Southeast Pacific region, where you have countries like Brunei, like Singapore, like Thailand, like Vietnam, like Philippines, like South Korea, North Korea, Japan, Indonesia, all the countries around the archipelagos. China had imparted on them long before China was overrun by Japan. Several years ago. Now, after the Second World War, shortly before the Second World War, there was a revolution in China that brought Mao Zedong, Chairman Mao Zedong, and his communists, and established what we call the Communist Republic of China, which is now the People's Republic of China. After the overthrow of the dynasty that was there, the Kuomintang, they now established the Chinese Communist Party that has been in power from there till now. Then we have had leaders like Chairman Mao Zedong, we have had leaders like Deng Xiaoping, we have had leaders like Zhao Ziyang there, we have had leaders like Jiang Zemin, Hu Jintao, and right now we have President Xi Jinping, a man who came and altered the constitution, the communist constitution of China, to become a life president.
Dictator for life.
Now, one of the things that he said when he became president, he said nationalism, Chinese nationalism, and China will put a machinery in motion to control that region, that South Pacific region. So if you hear that China is now reneging on the agreement that they have with the United Nations and Britain over Hong Kong, and is going to Hong Kong to go and be manipulating elections, China is trying to dance to the whims and caprices of the present president, Xi Jinping, to annex Hong Kong, annex Taiwan as part of the mainland China, with all their military arsenal, their economic powers, and the rest of them. Whether China will succeed or not is a different ballgame. Because as we speak right now, America is also warming up with her allies in the South Pacific region to caution the effect of China on those countries. And that's why China is entering into alliances, America is entering into alliances with countries like Australia, with countries like Philippines, with countries like India.
Even Taiwan.
Yes, Taiwan. In the name of the quadrilateral dialogue, try to caution the effect of China on those countries. The question that is this. The question that the world is supposed to be asking now, based on the way America and China are going about the struggle for the Southeast Pacific Ocean, is whether China and America will go to war. Because I see America moving their military arsenal towards the region. I see China moving their military arsenal towards the region over the resources of the region. For example, they have a gas reserve under the China seabed. They have petroleum under the China seabed. They have a lot of aquatic life, and that will solve the problem of food security. Or we enhance food security and some problem of food security in that region, including the one that is affecting China. Recently, China was not able to have enough fuel to power their plants, and so they were looking for how to import fuel. And they believe that if they are controlling the South China region, they will be able to use their technology to appropriate the resources of that region.
All right.
That's the reason why China is extending dominance around that region and damning the consequence that it can bring when America comes to fight them in that area.
All right, now he just used a term. I really want to, divert to you, Barrister Emmanuel Obapolo. He used the term damning the consequences. Yes. Whether America and their allies, they are there or not, China want to do what they really want to do. Now, it's against the rule. It's against the agreement. Do you think that China, when you talk about the South China Sea, taking a look at the name, South China Sea, are they running foul in this quest?
They are. Like I did say in my introduction, you look at China as a country, and also as my co-panelists have added and adumbrated in their contribution to the discussion just now. You discover that China, before 1945, 1946,
yes,
had some political and economic crisis.
Crisis, heavy.
Which brought down China. And under the leadership of the Mao Mao party, as it used to be, China was not able to achieve what she thought she would. But just now, with the present emperor as a leader, they have a
He was democratically elected.
Yes.
Why are you calling me a dictator, emperor?
Yes, his attributes, his character. Just like my co-panelists have pointed out. The character of the man is that he's beyond being a president at a particular epoch. He's beyond that. Yeah. His dream is to see China become world power.
Yeah.
That is his dream. And now, if you look at China's policies and investment, they are trying to dominate the whole world. Dominance is the only thing at the back of China's mind as it stands just now. Because over the years, being that they have gone through some economic crisis that led to the downtrodden, that made them to go down the scale when it comes to political achievement and economic strength. Now, they already know what it means to be down.
Yeah.
So, they don't want to be down, and they don't want to be at the middle. Rather, they want to be at the top. So, because of that, China sees America as an opposition. And if you look at all the policies of China over the years, any American ally and any step America takes towards showcasing that they are world power, China opposes.
Yeah.
China will always prefer to be an ally to Russia than to be with America. It's not because of any other thing, but that dream of becoming world power, that is the singular reason. So that's why, even despite the verdict of the tribunal in 2016, prohibiting China from our dominance in that area, China is still saying no. And America and the United Nations is also careful to maybe attack China as it stands. Because attacking China will result to Third World War. So they want to use diplomacy. So some of those countries around, what America is now doing is now trying to be an ally to them, bringing them closer, so that by the time she's stand enough to face whatever China is going to come up with, so that China too will look at, look, we do not have sufficient support, because already you look at the economic strength of China just now is super. You look at the political strength of China just now is super.
Yeah.
So now they themselves, they are conscious of all these facts. And now China knows that the only way we can dominate this area is to use force and coercion. So whether the world preaches against force and coercion, we don't give a damn. And what we want to do is to achieve our dream of becoming the superpower of the world, or at most to control the whole of Asian continent.
All right. Now, in a recent meeting organized by China, they invited some Asian countries, apart from Myanmar that's having, how will I put it, a political squabble. They invited Philippines, invited Malaysia, invited Vietnam, so many other Asian countries. And Xi Jinping made one comment. we are not here to bully smaller countries. We are here for their own benefit.
Yes,
well, we are not here to claim the whole South China Sea. We want to like interact. We want to be like, you know, like a brother to you, to help you in your economy, help you in your politics, help you in everything that will make you to grow. That was what Xi Jinping told these countries in their summit. Do you think this man is speaking from both sides of his mouth?
Well, I think he's speaking from both sides of his mouth. Because you just like, let quickly go to the history of colonialism in Nigeria or in Africa.
Yeah.
When these guys came, they came with the Bible and the gun. Say, hey, gentlemen, I come here for peace. But we come here to go and next to people. Yeah. We come here to preach the gospel of Jesus. At the end of the day, they came for economic interest. So we saw the way they messed up the national data, messed up the whole country. Look at the humiliation they meted to the Aborame. Look at what happened to King Jaja, all those kingdoms. But they came talking peace. So what Xi Jinping went to discuss with those leaders is we call it diplomatic, strategy in action. Because you must be diplomatic. If you are going to kill somebody and you are armed with a gun, you don't announce that you are armed. But when that situation of a warrant to bring out your gun, you bring out your gun. And one thing, as I said, I will talk about character of the person. The father of Xi Jinping, the father, he was a communist veteran. He died in the war communist. The father of this guy. So the guy had been schooled in China's nationalistic quest. And let us not forget quickly, if Xi Jinping is not behaving like this, America will take over everywhere. That is the truth, international politics. So if you blame Xi Jinping, you let the guy go, you leave it. If you don't do that, America will be everywhere. America, they went to Iraq, they went to, what are they looking for? As he said, there is abundance of natural material in South, in China seas. Economic interest, first. China wants to survive, and China is surviving. And thank God for Chinese leaders who had been there before him. Mao Zedong, on a good note, though he was a perpetual revolutionary, he did some terrible things, but he founded the People's Republic of China, he stabilized the People's Republic of China, the Cultural Revolution, the disadvantage, all those that came up. Somebody, Deng Xiaoping, one of the greatest leaders, you agree with me, economically, he reformed China. He said, wait a minute, we're talking about communism. Is it communism that will put bread on our table? Let's
open up a little bit.
Let's open up. They open up. And that made China a superpower. If China sneezes, Washington will, you understand? The tentacle in Washington is on China. China is the problem of America. Russia is there anyway. But Russia has its own limitation. If you talk about a country that is very strong economically, even politically, it's China. And talking of winning any war in that region, that sea, talk of submarine. China has plenty of submarine power. So, the Republic of China, the Communist, Republic of China today is strong, is solid. What he told those nations is just to bring them to the side of China. The economic interest is like the end justifying the means. And as I said, if the presidency of China is not doing what they're doing, America will take over everywhere. America is ambitious. America wants to control the world. They are afraid that power is slipping out of their hands. Power is slipping out of American hands.
Okay.
Look at what happened in Afghanistan. It is a national tragedy. It's a national humiliation. And the Britain administration is paying every price for it. Its popularity rating has gone down. So what do you want people like Biden to, Biden is Biden under the American president, under the American United States under Biden. See China as a rival that should be curtailed.
Okay.
Toe to toe. So as I said, it's economic interest, political interest. There's nothing going to stop. It's international relations, international politics is an ongoing thing.
All right.
I want to be there I want to be notified, I want to be a major player.
Okay.
So the game continues.
The game continues.
Yes.
Now, when other countries' vessels, like Philippine vessel, ventured into the water space, China reacted. It was 6 days later it was released. And of course, when the American vessel wanted to enter, warning shots were fired at them. Even when an aircraft wanted to enter through that space, also they were warned to please go back. And a strong warning was issued to America by Xi Jinping about the Chinese president. And of course, Joe Biden didn't keep quiet. He too issued a warning. With all this warning here and there, do you see this escalating?
Talking about escalation, talking about the subject matter that we are looking at right now.
Yeah.
This is a subject matter of international politics.
Yeah.
And international politics, when we look at it from the point of view of history, we discover that at every epoch,
every epoch,
countries struggle for dominance. Countries struggle to emerge as a superpower.
Yeah.
Historically, you will see that there was a time Germany and France were struggling over the control of the world. You will see there was a time Italy was struggling over the control of the world. There was a time Greece was struggling over the control of the world. Up to the period that the defunct USSR was struggling with America over the control of the world. That was during the period of
the Cold War.
The Cold War. Now, since the end of the Cold War and the collapse of the Berlin Wall that led to the unification of West and East Germany, there is now a shift, paradigm shift, about the source of power to compete with America. And that vacuum that was created by the dissolution of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics into about 14 countries now, is what now gave rise to China to be trying to fill the vacuum that was created by the defunct USSR.
That's it.
And of course, because Russia that emerged as the dominant country in that axis is now working with China, you see now that there is much force from the Chinese angle. But talking about China sneezing, America catching cold, and so on, I want to state that the world as it is a world of imperialism.
Imperialism.
It is. It is.
Nigeria as a country, we want to imperialize the West Africa sub-region, politically, culturally, economically, and militarily. For example, if you hear, for example, now that the government of, the other day I heard that the government of Sierra Leone was overthrown. I think that was when Joseph Momo was still the president. One Captain Valeta Strauss overthrew the government of Sierra Leone. And Obasanjo was president of Nigeria at that time. Immediately after warning the coup plotters, they refused. They sent troops from here to that place. That's a form of imperialism. And if Nigeria government is a government that is wise, the next is to put in machinery in place to recoup the resources that they use for that military expedition. That is how politics is being played around the world.
Around the world. But they didn't do that.
Just as if you heard
Yeah, if they were smart enough.
We play the role of the big brother.
Of the big
The
brother.
other day, Yahya Jammeh, after conceding victory to
Opposition.
the opposition, later he made the U-turn and said he was not going to leave power. Before he knew what was happening, when he now saw that Nigeria was leading other West African countries to come and station military arsenal in that place,
Gambia.
he left and went to the Republic of Gabon or whatever.
Yeah.
Overnight, it
So
succumbed.
that is again imperialism. So when we are talking about China trying to imperialize, try to make subservient to the economy, the politics and the military power of China, all those countries in that axis, well, you will not blame them, because they feel that historically China is connected to those countries. They were countries that were part of the old Chinese international system.
It's true.
And so they are ready, because when we talk about China dominating, China doing this one, China doing that, even the Asian country that China, Xi Jinping went to address. Again, that is imperialism. But it's trying to dampen their revolutionary zeal, so that at the end of the day, when they are totally conquered, then China can now pull a string.
Oh, you mean China hopes to conquer these countries? Is that what you're saying right
That's
now?
the aim now.
If you look at China's trade partners around almost all the economies of that region is dependent on the
China.
On Benji.
The largest, that coastal area accounts for the third largest part of the world economy.
Yes.
And it is centered around Beijing and all the goods and services that come from China. So even though that we know that many of those countries there, like Philippines, like South Korea, like Japan, like some other countries around, Malaysia, they are allies of the United States. That is why it is difficult when we are talking about a shootout war. It will be difficult because the consequences of that war will be felt in all the nooks and crannies of the world.
Unimaginable.
Now, a scholar by name Graham Allison, he wrote a book in 2016-17. And in that book, he has a question. And the question is, can China and America avoid the Thucydides war, the Thucydides trap? What was he trying to say here? He went back to history by looking at how Sparta and Athens fought a war in the old Greek city-states. They were two powerful nations, two states within the Greek city-state. Sparta was afraid of the growth that Athens was achieving. And said, okay, let us look for a way to break down the power of this country so that this country will not be, this Greek city-state will not be competing with us. And why Athens was gathering islands like Megara, like Corinth, like Sparta, like Salamis, Sparta was also gathering islands. And the war lasted for almost 30 years. And the war was like, the Japanese will refer to it as kamikaze because the war destroyed the fabric of the Greek city-state.
Annihilated.
We make refer to the strong Greek city-state. So if what America and China are doing now is like repeating history, try to repeat what happened between Athens and Sparta. They should learn from the ruins of the First World War, the ruins of the Second World War, and look for a way to now manage their crisis so that China will benefit, America will benefit, and all the countries that are dependent on them
will benefit. I'll come back to you now. Now, you just don't know. Now, there is a third party, well, I say a fourth party in all of this, Russia. And China made it open that it's going to go into a pact with Russia. All of a sudden, report has it that Russia never shipped. They're already in that particular region. What's Russia's deal in all of this?
Russia too is trying to tell the world that, look, once upon a time we're down, but we still remain the old Russia. But the truth remains that the Soviet Union that used to be in the world is no longer so again. Having countries like Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, small countries Ukraine, Georgia, and this small tiny island,
Czech Republic too.
Whose name is Herzegovina, something like that.
Bosnia and Herzegovina.
So some of these countries, they are no longer the United Soviet Union that we used to know. So Russia going there is also to say, look, we are here. We are not yet toothless bulldog. We are still that bulldog that can bull and bite. But Russia has a third-party role to play. Russia is going to play the gimmick. It's going to stay in between the United States and China. Meanwhile, Russia is an ally of China as it stands just now. They've never been in any good records or the good books of the United States of America. And the United States is conscious of that fact. So, like my co-panelists, the lecturer just said, they should avoid the Greek war. They should avoid the First World War. Lessons should be learned from all of this. Even the Second World War, lessons should be learned from it. And see how they can manage, quotes now, the situation at the China Sea, wherein the parties, the two major parties that are involved, will benefit. But to my mind, I do not see them going that way because the world of today is a world of imperialism, and one of the factor of or attribute of imperialism is greed.
Greed.
Yes. So every one of them there is what I stand to achieve. They are fighting for. I want to get something to boost my economy. Because just now in the world, coupled with the COVID-19 crisis the world have gone through from last year to this very moment, it brought down the economy of the world. And some of these big nations, United States of America, China, were affected. So now the economy they want to boost. They want to have strong base economy. Because if your economy is strong, then the possibility of ruling the world is 70% achieved. So that is the reason why you see the tapping from some of these coastal areas and to see how they can boost their economy. All this fight is to boost the economy, to achieve a political gain. That is the essence of all of this battle. And so that's why Russia, being a third party, is just going there to play what I will call the damn boy, wherein they will just go there, sing praises to any of the parties, because they don't really have any role to play there just now. Russia, the economy of Russia is not that strong to compete with United States of America and China. So they are, like I did say also, they already see America as an enemy, and they see Russia as a more better ally. So the game Russia is playing there is to come in between and see whether if the two giants fight and fall, maybe they will be the ones that will have benefit from what has happened to the two giants. So they are just there looking at what is going to transpire and come out at the end of the day. But mind you, United States of America is more diplomatic, because the leader and leaders of the United States of America just now has this diplomatic mind other than battle mind. So they may want to play more of diplomacy to see how they can gain the confidence of those coastal states. Because like the lecturer mentioned, already some of these coastal states are American allies. And over the years, America has been able to pamper and took care of them.
Yes.
So now Russia is coming. Russia is not taking care of them. Russia is now using force on them. So the possibility of 60 to 70% of them going to the side of America is higher.
Is higher. Okay. Now, if you take a look at history, some of the opinion that America want to use this opportunity to test the strength of China by using the coastal countries around China to really know of their capability. If you take a look at the escalation, it started more this year and of course last year, because China country report they've been doing their thing in that sea. It's just of recent that they shout, the who's and cry, now that you should leave that region. We have part of this. Do you see America being the puppet master here, pulling these countries to say China leave that place, which we own part of this, or it's on their own volition?
Well, as the game of imperialism, is playing in such a way that let me quickly say something about the temptation of going to full-scale war. Even China will not want to go to full-scale war because they know the consequence. You know what China went through during the Second World War, even First World War, where Japan dominated them for years. It was Second World War that it was the struggle of the communist revolution led by Mao Zedong, Liu Shaoqi, all those comrades that liberated China. They know the consequence of full-scale war. The man in Benji will not want war to come out. Okay, why is Xi Jinping going to meet Russia in the first place? He's looking for a way to balance the power, to see what have an ally here. Because he knows America has their own allies. America has Britain, they have Spain, they have Germany, they have that, they have that. So all this is, they're trying to balance force. You understand? Me, I don't see how a third war will be fought. Not in this, from what I can see.
Yeah.
Even during the Cold War, when the Cold War was really hot, look at when there was Soviet Union, the real Soviet Union,
Yeah.
Soviet Union wanted to build a base, a missile base in Cuba, for instance, in Cuba, under the legendary Fidel Castro.
Castro.
They actually they were already building a missile base, just direct as Washington.
And America reacted.
America reacted. John Kennedy was president, and said, hey, wait a minute. We will stand and oppose Soviet Union. But at the end of the day, when there was deadline, when the Soviet Union was bringing there was a ship that was coming from the IC,
yes,
bringing war ammunition to Cuba. And the Americans, they spotted that. They said they will not allow this thing to cross to this thing. And at that time, even to today, American presidents, they were going about with their nuclear button. During the heat of this, Cold War. What I'm trying to say is this: the leaders are even conscious. The leaders have tested power. They are ambitious. They don't want to be taken over by every third world war or whatever. So that's why diplomacy strategy will continue. You understand? Xi Jinping, the president in Beijing, he wants to be a perpetual leader of China. He wants to follow the example of people like Mao Zedong, who were there for several years. People like Deng Xiaoping, who were there for several years. So if we don't want a war to torpedo his ambition, because they know the consequence. If there is crisis, if there is a state of emergency, anything could happen. And as we know, even in China, the kind of democracy that is playing out there is not true democracy. Unlike what is available in the United States and Western Hemisphere. Though we know there are other shortcomings in Western democracy anyway. The latest, what Donald Trump all the mess he did, all the, he has their own, limitations, Western democracy and all that. But in comparison, what is available in America or in Western democracy is not what we have in communist China. Because the whole thing is regimented, it's not full-scale democracy. So, and Xi Jinping is aware of this, of this game. And we don't want a situation whereby if there's a crisis, it will consume him. Because though he's a powerful president, he's trying to have a perpetual third term now and all that. But you cannot be sure of power. Anything can happen.
Anything can happen.
You are removed. There will be a coup. There will be this. There will be that. Oh. So I see a situation, a continuous situation, whereby the superpowers, Russia is a superpower, China is a superpower, America is a superpower, Britain is a superpower, France is a superpower. They're all permanent members of the United Nations. I see them playing their game.
Right.
I don't see any war coming. Okay. They know where to put the checks. If the third war did not take place during the Cuban crisis, it will not take place now.
All right, now if you take
okay,
fine. Now, if you take a look at report, China made a very strong statement. It doesn't want to see any foreign vessel in that particular region. Vis-a-vis UK naval vessel was turned back. Don't cross that line. American naval vessel also was told not to encroach that, and they had to obey. Doesn't mean that China really have taken control of that region. Because like what they say in that region holds sway.
You see, when we are looking at China from the period of Mao Zedong, the period of their isolation from the world, and so on, they always make strong statements. Just like North Korea, they make strong statements.
Yeah.
When they make statements, they follow it up to the letter. So when China is telling you, return back, and the vessel that they are talking about is not a military vessel, the vessel will have to return back. If it were to be a military vessel, they are going there, as China is going there with their military arsenal. America is going there with their military arsenal, and China is saying go back. They will not go back because they know that they are ready for shootout war. And those vessels and their capability, they are being teleguided from
wherever,
state capital, from whether Pentagon or from
the Allies. basis.
So, what China is doing, the kind of politics of hostility that China is embarking upon, and what I call politics of bulldogism. I will say it, I will do it. The leaders of the country, those that are planning with Xi Jinping, they should go and learn from history, because those who fail to learn from history, they are condemned to repeating history. They are seeing the economy booming now. They brought COVID-19 the other day, and they started developing vaccines for people to be buying. And all the effort by the World Health Organization to get the details of what really led to the emergence of COVID-19, China refused to bring it out. Until today, the whole world is grouping the dark. Tomorrow they will say Delta variant, next tomorrow they will say Omicron variant, the other day maybe they will say tobacco variant. They are just, the world is grouping the dark. Yes, but China did not give them information and access to where COVID-19 started from, and what actually led to it. And so the world is grouping the dark. Today they will say, you take this vaccine, take that vaccine. You have taken the vaccines are not working. They will say, you now take a booster. Because China plunged the world into darkness, not just darkness, outer darkness, and the result is people are dying in their millions across the world now. So when we are talking about China, what I think about China, not just because of this issue of the South China Sea, I think about China as a country that is like the devil's advocate. What we call,
devil's advocate.
Yes, what we call advocatus diabolus. That's what we refer to. That's how we classify China. Why did I classify China like that? As we are talking now, we see different regions that are flashpoints around the world. We see Nigeria here, we have Islamic insurgency here. You go to Syria, there's a war here. You go to South Sudan, you go to different parts of the world.
Yeah.
Crises that have to do with shootout war. The question is, how are the weapons being brought? We are talking now that they are fighting in Tigray and attack in Ethiopia. How are they bringing the weapons? You will see that when you play an oracle about how these weapons are moving from one part of the world to the other, you will see the hand of China, you will see the leg of China, you will see vital part of China in this
the conspiracy.
So that leads us to the devil's theory of international politics. A country that wants to spread atmosphere of fear, democratize fear and violence across the world, so that you know that anytime the country is telling you, this is what I want, either you give it to the country, or the country will just wipe that part of the world out.
Wow.
This is the kind of politics that China is playing right now. And that politics is dangerous, because if China is relying on its military might, relying on economic might, and that economic might is not the domestic market, it's the external market. And the world gangs up against China. America gangs up against China with Britain, with Australia, with France, with Germany. Is it only Russia that will now rescue China when the chiefs are down? Japan will join the American ally. If all those countries, Malaysia, they will be happy to join the ally. Where will China now go that time? That's why I asked the question. Just like Graham Allison asked the question, can America and China avoid the Thucydides trap? There is a trap right now that is about to catch China and America. And China is moving giddily towards that trap. If the trap catches China, and China fires itself about a third world war or a serious nuclear crisis, because that South China Sea is where China is having their own Chinese ballistic missiles. They are stationed there. If they fire any missile there, will other countries be looking at China and say, let China wipe out this world, as they are trying to do with COVID-19 and some other viruses that are still waiting to happen to the world? Or will the world tackle China?
All right. Will the world tackle China? Now, let's take a look at the coastal countries right now. How do you think they will cope in this particular palaver? Because right now it's a palaver. China is not backing down. When it's calling us to come, let's talk. We are not bullying you guys. We are like your big brother. Let's do business. We're not here to take over the China Sea, but they are there. How do you think countries like Philippines, Malaysia, Taiwan, you just name it in that region, how are they going to cope?
Just like we've submitted in this program, most of these countries, 80% of these countries are American allies. So China is trying to trick them. I use the word consciously, the word trick, consciously. China is trying to trick them into fall into China's trap. And America is aware of this. So my think is that at this moment, America must also be talking to some of these countries and say, look, man, it is a trap. Don't fall into that snare. Because already some of these countries see China's activity, or what is called China's activism, as bully. On them.
As bully?
Yes, they already see it as bully. True, some of them are indebted to China based on the loans China gave to them. But notwithstanding, they've also seen that some of those loans China gave to them did not help their economy. And China is not contributing in any way positively to their economy. Instead, there's a contributory negligence from the side of China towards bringing down their economy so that China's investments can now run super in that country. So, and some of this investment China is trying to make or has made in some of these countries, America is also making them to understand that, look, this investment will not hold sway. This investment will not boost your economy. But rather, this investment is to draw you to the side of China, and China may now use you as slave. So the dominance of China, the bully dominance of China, has already appeared as human in some of these countries. So what they are now doing, they are not agreeing in totality with China to come to get the confidence of China, also their own confidence. So I see that not working.
Not working.
Yes.
All right, Nowinta,
Yes.
45 seconds to summarize your point. What do you think this hostility will lead to, briefly?
Well, just as I've enunciated before, I don't see the current hostility, getting into a third world war.
Third World War, okay.
Because the leaders are conscious of their own political ambitions. They are conscious of our historical, situation of their country, how they got to where they are, and things like that. Okay. So I see diplomatic game, being played. I see they know when to apply the clutches. The military clutch, they know when to apply it.
Thank you,
so it's not degenerating into a third world war.
All right, Neville, briefly.
Right now, I feel for China. Why am I feeling for China? I feel for China because China capacity internally is dwindling.
Yeah.
Capacity to steer the economy, capacity to unite the country, because China is made up of different nationalities. And the Chinese government, over time, they have been persecuting the Muslims, the Uyghur tribe, the Uyghur province. There's about two other regions that are close to Afghanistan and Uzbekistan. They are also Muslim-dominated communities. What the Chinese government is doing is to apprehend them and put them in camps, concentration camps, where they hypnotize them and make them to be subservient to the communist ideology, contrary to their own religious.
These are just hypotheses, though.
No, they are not hypotheses.
The Chinese, they denied it.
These are things that are happening to China.
They said it's not true.
China cannot right now afford a war with America and the islands, because the homestead that we help to get the victory, to secure the victory that China deserves, will be missing, because all those other countries that are dominated by Islamic fundamentalism right now, as we speak, by the time the war starts, they are likely to invade certain parts of China. And then there will be crisis comparable to what is happening in Afghanistan. So I expect the government of Xi Jinping to go and learn from what happened between President Kennedy of America and Brezhnev and Khrushchev of Russia. Of the fourth USSR. Over how they handled the Cuban crisis. So that they will handle this South China Sea crisis the same way, where there will be no victor, no
vanquish.
But
Thank you.
If they continue the way they are continuing, there shall be a shootout war. And the war, again, the Chinese, if they survive it like other countries, they will say the war was a kamikaze.
Kamikaze. That's total desolation, total destruction. Well, we hope it will not get to that. Gentlemen, I appreciate a wonderful analysis. Thank you so much. Your analysis top notch. Let's just see what will happen in that region. Right now, China is talking tough. and they have Russia by their side. They're talking softly also to the coastal country, but America has issued a strong warning. What do you think will happen? Bye for now.
This is ITV. Certainly the best.